Well, hello there. Hi. So, thank you for joining us. If you're joining us now, and if you're joining us, do have a question, then please do feel free to pop your question or say hello, or just simply say hello in the chat so that Julie and I will know that you're there. And if you do have a question, we'll try our best to answer it during the live. So, quick introduction to myself, if that's all right. So, I'm Joyce, Marketing Tech. So, we're a digital marketing agency focusing on SEO on LinkedIn and mobile technology for SMEs. So, really excited to have Julie Wong, who's here with me today to talk about upcoming workshop and what Julie will be covering. So, Julie, over to you to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I'm Julie. I am a financial and business growth mentor. So my background is finance, but it's all about growth strategies that I kind of focus on and how finance can support you in doing that. So, yeah, I'm known as a financial fortune teller because I'm helping businesses find their fortune in understanding their numbers.
Great. I love that description of you, financial fortune teller. I'm sure you'll stick. That's how people remember you by. So I just want to add before, so I'm going to ask Julie a couple of questions during this live. But before that, just want to say in an ideal world, and I'm sure Julie will agree with me on this, I think marketing, sales, and finance should really work closely together to grow a profitable business. We shouldn't really be in silos. In an ideal world, we should really work together. And that's why Julie and I have decided that we should join forces to hold a 2 hour workshop. So we're basically distilling all our decades of experience. I won't say how old we are. I don't want to be rude, but we have between us decades of experience, haven't we?
Too many, more than I'd like to admit to.
Same here too. So yeah, so I've been in marketing, and Julia has been in the finance for a long time. So we're gonna distill all our experience into a 2 hour workshop, and this is going to be on the 21st of May, and I'm going to be talking more about this, but more on that later. So to give you a little sneak peek of what we'll be discussing at the workshop, we'll start with Julie. So Julie, I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions to get us going, if that's all right. We've got 17 people so far joining us live, which is great. Fantastic. Thank you. Do say hello in the chat if you can, so that we know you're there. So Julie, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. So first of all, we're going to start by asking you, what do you mean by financial strategy? What is it, and why is it important?
Well, the reason I think financial strategy is important, and people think it's only numbers, but actually, if any business owner has a destination of where they want to get to, often that destination, what it looks like, where it's going to, is a words or it's pictures in their mind. And so, in understanding what a strategy is like how are they going to get to their destination? And that's sort of like, oh, it can be take all different forms of action. But unless you can measure it, you can't actually manage it. So converting your strategy, which is your words and pictures, into numbers, it becomes a lot more tangible. And then you can understand what the actions you actually take in making in running your business on a daily basis, weekly or whatever, how that impacts you and how you're actually going to reach your destination. So perhaps if you are, wanting to be the world leader for or market leader for any particular product, what does that actually mean numerically? Because obviously, how do you benchmark when you've achieved that goal? So financial strategy is literally just your strategy converted into numbers so that you can track your progress and see what happens when you take a certain action, and where you can do more good stuff and less of the bad stuff.
Okay, coming from a marketing person, that sounds easier said than done, I think.
Look, much easier, but it's
Yeah.
it is. But then if you have a good campaign, with a lead gen, I imagine, that's how I would look at from, if I talk to the marketing lead in any organization or
Mm-hmm.
consultancy, we did a discussion about, where we want that strategy to look like. And so how would it come together? And it's not always easy to track with any lead gen because there's always a time lag. But hopefully you start trending the tracking the data, because when it's fallen off the radar from your marketing department, that's when it might show up in your financials. And so being able to track that kind of data is helpful for any future strategies and campaigns.
Okay, great. So I'm going to throw you a question, Julie, which I may not have prepared you for. So I'm just interested to find out what are some of the problems that companies face when managing their finances. How do you help them mitigate that risk? What are some of the practical real life problems that you hear in your conversations with them?
Actually, I mean, the most common thing I hear is people not actually managing their resources because they're not actually monitoring their resources, whether it is
Mm-hmm.
time, if you're a service-based business, or in all businesses, not everyone actually monitors their cash as a cash flow forward. And that seems to be irrespective of whether you are early stage startup, whether you are just sort of getting going, growing, and even mature businesses. I mean, I see businesses which are very mature. So they've been, the business owner been in it for 20, 30 years, but they don't actually do the forecasting element of it. And so that is a very dangerous thing if you're using your bank account to measure A, your profitability, and B, whether you can afford to pay for something, when you can't really measure and take action to invest in, say, marketing campaigns, take on new staff, move premises, buy more stock, train, new equipment, all these sort of things, if you don't know what the future looks like. So cash is like the oxygen to your business. And if you don't measure and manage your burn rate of that, you can come unstuck, because more businesses fail for lack of cash than lack of profitability. And you can be profitable, but if you don't have the cash, and that means tracking when you need that cash in order to pay your liabilities, etc., that can send you under. So that is the most risky bit if you're not managing your cash and doing cash flow forecasts, in my experience.
Also, I think if I may add, it also gives you peace of mind, doesn't it? Rather than you panicking or me panicking, you can plan ahead. So it gives you some assurance that the business is going to be okay
Yeah.
in the long term. May not be okay in the short term, but would be okay in the long term. So tell us
Yes.
a bit more about bank statement. You mentioned something about bank statement bookkeeping. I think I'm guilty of that at times. So tell us a bit more about that.
I'm guilty of it too. When you're small and you kind of think, well, I've got it in my head, I'm going to manage it. I just need to bring in X amount of clients, and like, no, so many people do that. I just need to bring in 3 more clients, and I can pay those bills, etc. But sometimes, if you see,
Yeah.
and sometimes we're in denial. We don't like looking at our bank statements because they don't look like where we want them to be. And I think
Hmm.
it's a guilt thing, isn't it? You're thinking, oh, I'm so
Yeah.
embarrassed to look at it, and it's like if you're overweight or underweight, or you think I'm really looking unfit. You don't like looking in the mirror, but actually the first thing to do is actually really face what the reality looks like and say, okay, what do I need to do in order
Yeah.
to take action? And I think looking at bank statements, making sure that you do your bank reconciliation, which is basically understanding and matching all
Hmm.
your revenues or your incoming money, and your outgoing money, and where it's going, because you need to track that for your accounting statements. But then if you
Yeah.
understand what you're spending your money on and where your money is coming from, you can take action. If money is coming from these customers and
Hmm.
sold lots to them, but are they paying me? And because a profit is fictitious until they actually pay you,
Hmm.
that's the most
Okay.
important thing.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. And I
Chase
can't
your
tell
debt.
sorry.
You can chase your debts then if you know they haven't
And
paid
chase
you.
your dad. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And I can't tell how many times I've had conversations with prospective customers who will tell me, "Oh, I love what you do, I'd love to work with you, but let me just wait for that couple of invoices to come in. I'm expecting to be paid next month or next week or next year, or whenever it is. I'm just waiting for that invoice, and then we can talk." I've heard this so many times. So tell me what's wrong with it when you hear that. What do you think of? What's the first thing that
Well, of course, I've done that before, and I did have this conversation yesterday. Do I invest in something? It's like, no, I need to have some other priorities. But it's actually understanding the impact of those priorities and seeing where you can then, because sometimes you need to spend money to dig yourself out of a hole, and
Yeah.
that's where you know. If you're not making any sales, then you essentially don't have a business. And if you don't have any leads in order to make a sale, then you don't have any business. So that's why marketing and finance goes hand in hand. You can plan as much as you want to. I
Hmm.
can plan to have, X amount of sales in each month, but
Yeah.
what am I doing to take those actions? And, that's that old phrase of, if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. So
Hmm.
you're just following your same sales and lead marketing strategies, etc., and it's not
Yeah.
generating, the leads and the revenue that you want it to, then it's really kind of like you have to go back and it's a hard pill to swallow sometimes, thinking, do you know what, I really need to change it up. If your diet isn't working, you need to change your diet. If your exercise program isn't working, you need to change your exercise program. It's not a case of just hammering harder at the existing strategy. It's being able to pivot your strategies to see what the impact actually does.
That makes sense. Yeah. And you need the data coming in to help you make that decision rather than panic, short-term panic,
Mm, mm,
or just putting more money, good money into bad projects, I
yeah,
suppose. Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, fantastic. So, you wanted to say something about lead generation as well earlier. Do you want to share some insights on lead generation with us?
Yeah, well, lead generation, I mean, this
Mm,
goes back to why, marketing lead generation sits side by side with finance, because
yeah.
whilst you're bringing in the leads, it's like, what kind of leads do you want? And so finance can help give, if you've got the right finance data, that is. And so that
Mm-hmm.
goes back to what information you're using. And, some people don't even look at their accounts. It's literally sales,
Yeah.
expenditure. And then they file their accounts end of year and they put it in a drawer and go, done. And that I call the file and forget brigade. So that's historic. If you have a bookkeeper,
Mm-hmm.
accountant, and that data is all historic. But if you are then planning for the future, the Google Maps, I call, the financial planning, strategic planning, the Google Maps. And so it's a case of then looking at which sales do we want to make that are most profitable, and then therefore what leads do we want to be generating. Are we looking at, have we maxed out the lead generation from, using, lifetime value of a client? Do we have enough products in order to keep our clients coming in? So you could have a marketing campaign, lead generation campaign for existing clients. You could have lead generation campaign for brand new clients. And it's understanding which segment you want to go through. That's a marketing thing, but also understand from a financial perspective. Some clients bring in more money more profitably than other clients, and understanding that and dovetailing those two together. You want the leads that generates the most money, not the most turnover necessarily. It might be just a case of what can you do, and then your lead generation campaign, whether you do offers, what impact does it have on your profitability, what impact does it have in a long term, because about the pricing. So pricing strategies is affected both externally but also internally as well. It's a trombone effect. So that
Mm-hmm.
affects your pricing strategy. So that's why I say lead gen comes together with finance. It's inseparable. We depend on
Mm.
each other.
Yeah. So you mentioned Google Maps earlier. So am I missing something? You
Yeah,
mentioned
I
Google
do.
Maps as an analogy.
Yeah, that's my, so one of my analogies
Yeah.
is basically, what I said earlier on is like, if your business
Yeah.
is your vehicle to get you to your destination, typically you have some idea of how you're going to get there. And so
Mm-hmm.
basically that's your financial and your business strategy, is you know
Okay.
how long it's going to get you there, the milestones
Uh-huh.
you need to reach, and you need to know how much fuel you've got in the tank, which is a cash bit and sales, in order to get you to your destination.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you come up against changes in the market, then you can understand what alternative roads you can then take to get to your destination, because there's more than one way to get to your ultimate destination. You could change
Mm-hmm.
your products and services, you could sell more of something than you thought you were going to, you could
Mm-hmm.
increase your prices on something because you realize the market demand is there, you don't have the competition. So that's financial modeling. That's where you can play with all your numbers and go like, what happens if I test out this idea? And you play with it on paper and to
Mm-hmm.
see what the impact of it is. Because if you
Yeah.
don't do it on paper, then it's a high risk strategy to just launch strict changes in like new products, new services, new pricing. Whether you go to new markets with new products or whether you go to your existing markets with your same products or new products, you can play with all those nuances with
Mm-hmm.
financial modeling. I
Okay.
call it financial Play-Doh or financial Lego. You just play with
Mm.
bits and pieces.
Yeah, so it's like a roadmap. It will form a roadmap for you looking to the future. So I just want to say, give a shout out to Agnieszka. Hello, Agnieszka. Thanks for saying hello.
I'm not seeing any comments.
Oh, you don't see it on your, perhaps on your
Hello.
LinkedIn app. Yeah. So, yeah. Hi there, Agnieszka. If you do have a question for us, then do feel free to pop your question in the chat. So yeah, so we've still got 16 people with us. Thanks for staying with us. That's great. Yeah, so profitability, that's really important for service-based industries, isn't it? Again, I'm popping a surprise question at you, but I'm sure you'll be fine answering it.
On the
You,
spot.
on the spot, yeah, yeah, testing you on the spot. Yeah, so service-based industry like mine, agency, quite often, we profitability of a client can be quite misleading. We may think that we've got a new client coming in, we get all excited, providing all the services, but then soon we realize that we are paying out, we are getting the invoice, the payments in from our new client, but we're also paying out to all sorts of services, perhaps to freelancers, to our staff. We don't realize very quickly, it could escalate to a new client becoming quite unprofitable because we're not tracking our costs properly.
Yeah.
Could you share with us some insights on that? Because that's quite a common trap for
It's a
service-based.
very, very common trait. It's a very common trait. So so normally how it should work in an ideal world is basically how do you quote for a piece of work, and
Mm,
quoting bit and how long something takes is just down to experience quite often, and it's about then defining what kind of project looks like and say how many hours of Joyce's time, how many hours of time that Joyce's assistant takes, and then what are the external services, maybe you have some freelancers, some designs, the actual
hmm.
Facebook ads and things like that, to whatever other external costs. It's being able to cost a project out effectively and then be able to manage and measure that on a regular basis. And so that's why people bring in project managers, because you can have a project spend, say for like £5,000, for example. You've quoted somebody £5,000 for a massive campaign,
Yeah.
and then you've based it on this amount of work going into it. But halfway through the project, you may have say, okay, I've spent £2,500, but have you actually created £2,500 worth of impact of the work that you thought you were going to be? Are you actually halfway through the work, or have you already incurred and burned up
Mm,
the cost? So it's not only just tracking the cost of what that project looks like, it's also tracking your progress and deliverables of that project, and it's having a management system to do that. So getting your staff is a very difficult thing. Staff don't always like time tracking because they feel like it's big brother. So
hmm.
if they understand it from a profitability perspective and say, look, I always say engage all your staff at every stage. I'm not a silo person by nature. I love the communication thing because I'm always learning random things. And so if your staff understand that their time, and if they overspend on certain time, how it impacts on the rest of the business and impacts the rest of profitability of a company, then they may feel more engaged and say, it's not about me measuring my time, but it's actually measuring whether this contract was quoted for correctly as a learning. So next time you go, actually, we think we need 10% more time, or 10% buffer was not enough. We need a 15% buffer in future. It's really using the numbers and
Yeah.
learning what those numbers actually mean.
Mm, okay. Yeah, so that's a real problem really, because for service-based business, and also it's not just resources, it's not staff time, the salaries that you pay, the invoices that you have to paying out to part-timers and a whole bunch of freelancers in the case of an agency.
Yeah,
That's what I'm encountering. It's also scope creep, what we call scope creep, because sometimes clients' expectations, you have that down in a proposal, it's a contract, it's all signed for, you know exactly what you're delivering, but there's always this in real life thing called scope creep,
yeah,
where
always.
you got to talking and you suddenly realize the client needs a little bit more help than what we originally decided, which happens quite often.
Yeah,
And so it's very easy to just not go back to the original proposal, the original contract that we've had with the client side, and just say, yes, okay, let's do it. Let's just do it. And soon you'll find out that over the space of a couple of weeks, you realize that you're soon doing stuff which you did not agree on doing.
mm, mm,
Um, for one reason or another, or your staff, your team may also be encountering scope creep and doing bits and pieces of stuff which was not originally in the agreement. And
yeah.
that is a real problem.
I mean, this is absolutely true. I mean, I experience it from my personal perspective, and I see it from my clients' perspectives as well. And it's really coming down to mindset around at the end of the day and saying, okay, owning it as an owner, what is it going to impact? Because if you have a scope creep to a certain extent, you are basically compromising your business, because it's not just you losing money on that, you're actually
Hmm.
losing opportunity cost. So if you lose half a day, one day over a cumulative period over the project, that is your profitability from another project. So if you start thinking from that perspective, maybe you may feel a bit more emboldened to have that conversation with a client at the outset and say, I feel like this may head in a different direction. And it's having the confidence to have that. Okay, that's easier said than done. But actually, if you define what you want to deliver and what the outcomes are, then you're going to have that conversation far more easily. And you can only learn from experience, because if you're burned by too many times that, a project takes you 1.5 times what you originally quoted, at
Hmm.
some point you're going to say no. But the sooner you know that, the sooner you're going to say no. Hence the monitoring and tracking thing, because if you don't review it regularly and you realize, you've got 10 clients on the books and 5 of them are scope creeping, and you're not realizing a scope creeping on 5 of them, that's going to have massive impact on you until you review it 6 months down the line, going like, what happened? I was supposed to make this amount of money, but then you look at it 6 months down the line because it was scope creep. In that 6 months it's taking you to look at that, you've probably taken on more clients that are going to scope creep too. So this is why reviewing your financial information on a very, at least a monthly basis, check your projects, it allows you to stop the flow. So it's like you have leak. It's like a leak in your house, plumbing. You got a leak in the attic or whatever. You want to
Yeah.
turn the leak off now and not find out 6 months later.
Mm. Yeah. You need to find out where the leak is
Yeah,
in the house. Where did it originate from before you can sort the problem out in the
absolutely.
first place? Yeah. Okay, fantastic. Right. So, is there anything else you want to add, Julie, before we go back to talking about the workshop and a bit more detail on that?
No, I think, it's just I'm always
Yeah.
trying to help people understand the importance of knowing numbers, because it is a story
Mm,
that your numbers are telling you. It gives you the
mm-hmm,
state of health of your business. And I know that not many business owners, they kind of feel a bit intimidated about, they go, I've got my accountant, and they can take care of it. But if you think about it, if an accountant has like 100 clients in their practice, they do not have the time to get involved in to 100 strategies of your
mm-hmm,
business. So this is why, where a small business sits versus a corporate business, because corporate business, they have their accountants that sit externally, but they also have their internal accounting departments. But a small business is missing out on the strategic side of things that helps them
mm,
bring the story together. And for the business owner, understanding numbers is a bit like understanding, I don't know, your health metrics, your blood pressure and your, I don't know, your cholesterol level and things like that. So you know what action to take, and understanding what those numbers actually mean. So it's a language that I think every business owner should want to learn.
yes, definitely. So you feel there's a big gap in terms of this area of knowledge for SMEs. So at what stage of an SME would they probably need help from you? What's the best time to say come to you for
I think
financial advice, proactive advice rather
I
than retrospective?
completely understand. It's basically, I feel like, I'll come on, I'll pop up and hold your hand for a little bit and I'll disappear and come away. Because at the beginning, if you understand what your financial statements actually are, have an understanding and learn to do a cash flow forecast,
Mm-hmm.
and the new profit and loss forecast, basically that's understanding your strategy. And if you can do that internally, understand that, that you are set up with the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And when
Mm-hmm.
you're later on, you might need somebody to give you more data, because your data moves a lot faster. You're a bigger business, you're managing a lot more staff, you're managing a lot more clients, therefore you'll need somebody more strategic on hand to help you with some more decision making. And you don't have the time to review those numbers. You want somebody to distill it into the top 10 bullet points for you at the end of each month.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then when you're bigger up, further on, then you might take on a finance director on a fractional part. That's a finance director that only works for you, a bit, day, 2, 3 days, whatever, a month. They can help give you that guidance. and then
Okay.
you have, you have full-time teams of staff. So it's having a bit of knowledge and a bit of understanding as to what you need. So it's a bit like when you join a gym, you understand what health and nutrition looks like. Then they set you the program and you go run with it. But then you've realized you need a bit more assistance. So you might take on a personal trainer or a personal nutritionist, and they keep you accountable for that. And so that's also important too. So yes, you could, but the first thing, a business owner needs to understand is what financial statements actually looks like. That level of knowledge is, I do lots of, workshops around that, group workshops. So get that level of knowledge, understand what it actually means, learn the ABC of finance is what I call it, or a KISS.
Mm-hmm.
Keeping, I call it the financial KISS, keeping it super simple.
Okay, fantastic. Right. So I hope that's helpful, everyone. And thank you, Julie, for sharing with us some of your insights. I think it's really, really helpful and quite and really valuable as well. So I just want to end our life by saying that the workshop that we're doing together, Julie and myself, and we'll talk about my side of the workshop where I'll be talking about marketing and lead generation, hopefully in the next live that we're going to have. So stay tuned for that in the next live. So this workshop that we're doing together on the 21st of May, it's a unique opportunity. I don't think you'll find a workshop like this easily, where two of us are coming together. We are each specialists in our own fields in finance and marketing, and we're bringing you decades of our own experience distilled into a 2 hour workshop. So if you're interested to find out more, if this resonates with you, what Julie has talked about today, then we invite you to come along to our workshop. And I'm going to pop the QR code here right now so that you could scan. If you'd like more information, you can then scan it. And it's an Eventbrite page, essentially. Scan it to get more information about the training outline, the outcomes, the training outcomes. And if you'd like to join us, you can sign up on the Eventbrite page as well. So there you go. I think that's it. Anything else you'd like to add, Julie? Before
No,
we end?
I'm looking forward to. I hope it's really fun. And I don't know anybody who knows Sophie Cornish. She was the CEO of Not on the High Street, and I listened to her
Ah,
speak,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
and she said, marketing, finance, marketing, finance, marketing, finance, the two things that you need to accomplish very well in running your business. It's not one without the other. It's that both of them together, because for me, it's like a three-legged table: finance, marketing, and also the fulfillment side of your business. What you're delivering to your
The
client.
sales and sales as well. Yeah.
Marketing,
Yeah.
marketing, sales, that kind of external facing
Mm-hmm.
stuff, internal stuff, but it's all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's me.
That's you. Perfect. Thank you very much. And thanks to the 22 people who are joining us live here today. Much appreciated. And thank you for your support. So we will see you soon, hopefully. If you could stay on for a bit, Julie, I'm just going to
No
finish
worries.
this live and